what the city is talking about, the news that impacts you. Welcome to the Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
Welcome to this week's edition of Montreal Now, the podcast here on the iHeartRadio network. I'm Aaron Rand along with Natasha Hall, and this week we look at these stories. After a woman in Quebec City was threatened with arrest by police after she went topless there, a demonstration supporting her rights to do it was organized in Montreal. We'll talk to the woman who put it together and has no plans to back down.
It actually just so happens we have a show with all female guests this week, so that's kind of cool. We're also going to talk about why it might be the perfect time to find the job you always wanted but thought you weren't qualified for. And if you've noticed people seem to be short on patience and kind of snippy these days, you're not the only one. And it seems it's even happening at the office. We'll get some advice on how to ease workplace tensions.
Jessica KIRSON is a stand-up comic veteran. She's performed all over the world, and with crowds longing for laughs after 2 years of no Just for Laughs festival, she's back with some pretty interesting observations on how things have changed for all of us, including comedians.
And I was walking down the street the other day, and this girl was walking on in front of me, and she was on the phone, and I listened to her conversation, and it was literally like,
oh my God, I was on Instagram, and I posted this post, and I look so good. Like, I look so good. I look so pretty. And, like, nobody commented. Nobody commented. Like, Julie, Amy, Melissa, nobody commented. I was, like, freaking out. On Instagram.
So I tapped her on the shoulder, and I said, I've been following you!
That is Jessica KIRSON, who's going to be performing Just for Laughs coming to Montreal this summer again. I've seen her before, by the way. I'm a big fan. And she is on the line right now. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, how are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Good.
Good.
I'm scared of what I just said on that.
I was going to say, what's it like hearing that back?
Oh, it's horrible. We all hate hearing ourselves do comedy, but it's okay.
So, I mean, I think I saw you about 4, maybe 5 years ago in one of the smaller venues at Place des Arts, and it's kind of one of those things where if you're in the audience at a Jessica KIRSON show and you have to be sitting really close, you can become part of that show, right? That's still the deal?
Yes, that is the deal. In fact, my TikTok is like exploding from that. I put up crowd work videos every day, and people love it. A lot of people sit up front just so that I talk to them. They do it on purpose.
What do you think that says about them and why they're attending the show, Jessica?
I think a lot of people want attention. I mean, they do. They want to talk to the comic because I'm not mean to them. I really just have conversations with them. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I love watching you work. I wondered, too, though, because the last couple of years, obviously, we haven't had a Just for Laughs because of COVID. What's it been like, as a working comic, not being able to get out there and have that, sort of relationship with a live audience?
Oh, it was very hard. I mean, it really was. During COVID, my special came out on Comedy Central that was produced by Bill Burr, and I did The Tonight Show for the third time, and I had a whole year booked of shows, and then COVID happened, and I basically was doing outside shows, and then I was doing shows from my walk-in closet on Zoom. It was insane. And a lot of my friends didn't do any of that, but I was like, I have to do something. I have to just keep doing stand-up somehow. And it was hard. And then when we started doing it again, you were doing it with crowds. Everyone was very separated and wearing masks, and that was really strange. But it was still good to have people sitting in front of you. And now it's great. I mean, now it's completely back to normal, and I'm traveling all over the country and doing shows in Canada, and it's back to normal.
I wanted to ask you, I'm not sure this works in the realm of comedy, but we keep hearing stories about how, short-tempered, how angry people seem to have become over the last little while. I'm sure a lot of it is obviously COVID related. Do you find audiences in the time that you've been back on the road have changed at all or not?
That's a very good question. They have been a little more hostile.
Really?
And
wow.
People are definitely, they've been drinking more and doing more drugs. I know that sounds crazy, but because I talk to the audience a lot, it's so crazy. I'll be like, what's going on with you? And someone's like, I'm on mushrooms, or I'm like, what? Like, no one ever did that when they came to comedy shows. People are like out of their minds a little more, but it's seeming to calm down a little bit. I think people were cooped up for so long, And the minute they started coming out, they were just getting wasted and going crazy and yelling out a lot. But now it's calming down.
Okay.
It's calming down. Has it changed at all how
yeah.
you do your routine? Like, are you ever concerned for your safety? Do you ever worry about somebody, taking a joke the wrong way now?
Yeah, I mean, since this stuff has been going on with the Will Smith thing and then the Chappelle thing, I was in LA. I filmed my Netflix special with Bill Burr literally 2 days after that happened with Chappelle, and I was hanging out with Chappelle that night when I filmed the Bill Burr special, and we were talking about it, and everyone was freaked out. I've always had a concern. I have this Jewish mother who's a therapist, and for years she's been saying to me, what if someone didn't like what you said and just stormed on the stage? And I've had people do that to me over the years, and I've had people throw bottles at me. I mean, I've been through it all. I've been doing this 23 years, and you always deal with drunk people doing crazy things, but I think everyone's a little more concerned now. They seem to have amped up security a little bit, but I guess I can't think about that too much. I have to just do what I do and go on stage and just try to be present and have fun and know that I'm protected. There is usually very good security at the clubs, and just hope for the best.
Yeah, you got to do your thing.
That's all I can do.
Yeah. So you just mentioned you've been doing this for 23 years, which kind of leads me to ask, what got you into this to begin with? I mean, you mentioned your mother's a therapist. Did that have something to do with it?
Oh, of course. I mean, I think how could it not, right? No, actually, it's a great story. I was going to NYU for a master's in social work, and my grandmother, I was at a restaurant, and my grandmother, I was sitting with my cousins and my sister, and they were all hysterically laughing, and I was always a class clown, and my grandmother called me over to her, and she said, you need to be a comedian. Wow. And I said, what? And she said, trust me, I'm your grandmother. I know these things. Every time you're sitting with people, they're falling over laughing. You need to be a stand-up comedian. And I said, I could never, ever stand in front of people and make them laugh. I could never be on stage, ever. And she said, trust me, just do this. And I looked in the paper, and there was a class to take a class, and I tried it, and I was panicked and literally vomiting. I was so nervous. Every time I would perform, I would get sick. And I did it, and I just couldn't stop. I got the bug, and I kept doing it, and now here I am. It's crazy.
Your grandmother was right.
Petrified.
And I understand you teach now. You teach comedy in New York.
I taught for years in New York. I taught Chris DiStefano and Rosebud Baker and Amy Schumer. I taught for years, and then I stopped for years. And then during COVID, a lot of people reached out to me, mostly women, and were like, can you coach me? I'm home. I'm not doing anything. And I thought, why don't I just start, teaching on Zoom women? So I started teaching women around the country again on Zoom, and I've been doing that for a couple of years, these Zoom classes. Now I've taken a break, and I don't think I'll do it for a while. But yeah, it's so rewarding. There's now like 100 women around the country who now are in this network, and they all give each other stage time, and they do writing together, and they support each other, and I love that. I've taught them all now. I love helping them, teaching them things that they don't have to learn on their own, that I learned the hard way, about how to deal with audiences and how to do crowd work and how to deal with the business and agents and managers and club owners and how to write and all different kinds of things. It's very rewarding for me.
As you say that, I think to myself, given the fact that someplace like Netflix is along and it produces so much original comedy, is it fair to say, Jessica, in your opinion, this is almost a golden age for female comics? I can't ever remember so many great female comics being out there.
Yes. I think this is really an amazing time for female comics. I don't know if you know, but I executive produced and was in a documentary called Hysterical. It was on FX, and it's now on Hulu. It's a documentary about female comedians that Margaret Cho is in, and Kathy Griffin, Eliza Schlesinger, and Fortune Feemster, Nikki Glaser. I mean, there's a ton of us in it.
Wow.
And I'm working on a new documentary about female comics around the world that I'm executive producing, and Soleil Moonfry is directing, Punky Brewster.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that one is, it's fascinating. I interviewed these female comics around the world during COVID, and their stories are incredible. A lot of them, there's no freedom of speech. I mean, they have to sign papers, and military shows up to their shows, and they can't talk about so many things. And so that's my new project. It's just, there are so many incredible female comics in the United States and in Canada, and we go through a lot. I mean, when I first started, there was never more than one woman on a lineup of 12 comics in New York, and now there's there could be 4 or 5. I mean, it's crazy.
It's awesome.
And they're strong. They're incredible.
They really are. You mentioned some of the names. Like, I watched that Eliza Schlesinger special. I mean, there's some incredibly talented women in this business now, and it's so nice to see. So, look, we're going to run out of time. First of all, I want to thank you for being with us. You know the dates you're working here. You're coming to Montreal. Are you performing? You hosting? What are you going to be doing?
Part of the culture show, right?
Yes. I'm going to be part of the culture show. It's an incredible lineup. The guys on it are so strong, and people should definitely come to the show. I'm coming there, starting July 13th. I think the show's going until the 28th. I'm almost positive, but it's all on the website, and I can't wait. And I'm doing other shows there too, and I love the festival so much. I can't wait to be there, and I love Montreal. It's very exciting.
Hey, listen, we're looking forward to seeing you here again. So all the best to you. Yeah, I love talking to you, and I look forward to seeing you when you get here in a couple of weeks.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I'll see you guys soon.
Take care. Yeah, Jessica KIRSON, she's going to be performing at Just for Laughs. She is very, very funny.
Informative, interactive, and always interesting. This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
What's your dream job? Is there something you've always wanted to do but never dared try due to a lack of experience? You thought there's no way they'd ever hire you. Well, now's your chance. The labor crunch has employers looking outside the box. How can you make that work to your advantage? She knows.
So this is probably not going to come as a giant surprise. We've heard how tight the labor market is. We've heard about people not wanting to go to work, people deciding to move on. In fact, I think there was a record set for the number of people quitting jobs not that long ago. And obviously a lot of this, almost all of it, has to do with the pandemic. At least that's what we think. New survey found 77% of Canadian employers see value in hiring a candidate based on their, quote, soft interpersonal skills and attitude to learning rather than job-related experience and hard skills. So that's pretty much exactly the opposite from what we might have thought not that many years ago, right? Experience was always key. You know about the job if you had experience in the job, but the labor market is changing. So we thought we'd kind of get you up to date on this. Michelle Slater is director at Indeed, Indeed.com. You're familiar with this site online, and going to share some of these, statistics and try to understand, more than anything else, why this is happening. So, Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me today.
So you're analyzing data here that you see on your own site. When did this start to change?
It's interesting that we're seeing these changes, and it's a lot to do with coming out of the pandemic, quite honestly. We've seen the Canadian economy be very, very strong. And as you mentioned just a couple of minutes ago, people are making a lot of decisions about their career, where they want to work, what industry they want to work in. And having that time, the last couple of years, hanging out at home by ourselves with our close family members has given Canadians time to reflect and think about what's important for them. And that's translating into how they look at the world of work.
I'm thinking, and you're absolutely right, that priorities have changed, right? Priorities have changed for all of us as individuals, I think, and certainly for employers. But then I also wonder, Michelle, how much does just sheer desperation have to do with this, right? There's a major labor shortage. People just need workers.
Yes, we're actually seeing that out of that, the Canadian employers that we surveyed, 69% of them are saying that hiring employees without direct experience is an opportunity to fill those empty roles that they have. those empty roles in, rapidly growing industries. And quite honestly, it's happening all across the country. It's not in pockets or regions or in specific industries. We're seeing it hit across the entire labor force.
That's interesting, too.
Yeah, interesting in a sense that you'd see it across industries. I'm just wondering, though, how are employers dealing with this in the sense of having to pay more, and I hate to say it this way, to get less, but ordinarily the level of experience you had would dictate the salary you're going to get. That seems to be off the table now.
I actually think it's an interesting opportunity for employers because right now, if you're looking at bringing somebody who's new, fresh maybe from college, university, or even in some industries, high school, it gives you a chance to train the individual in the way you want them to behave. So if you've got a great person who shows an aptitude for learning, who's got positive energy and that can-do attitude, it's a great way to be able to train them and invest in those employees. And from an employer perspective, if you've got a great employee who's learning and being challenged regularly, it also means they may stay with the company a little bit longer than if they came in meeting 100% of the qualifications for that job, the way it used to be.
Michelle, we just got a text from a vocational business teacher, and I think this says so much. I want your take on it. This teacher says, I tell all my students, even pre-pandemic, that employers want soft skills. Everything else can be taught. So is that kind of what it boils down to, that those soft skills are kind of inherently there or not? The hard skills can be taught.
I agree with that statement. I know when I'm hiring, and I've hired a number of different employees over my career, I look at aptitudes such as critical thinking. What is their work ethic? What is their attention to detail? I mentioned already their attitude. The attitude and the willingness to try more, to be challenged, to show leadership, all of those together go towards building very productive teams. And quite honestly, don't you want to work with somebody who's a nice person? It really adds to a happy and successful work environment for absolutely everyone at the company.
Agreed.
So I'm wondering, part of the other thing we're seeing now, this hybrid work model is still ever evolving. Different companies have different approaches to this. Do you think ultimately that is one of the reasons we're starting to see this? Because companies now will have to accommodate people more than they did before. Some who simply want to stay from home or at least a couple of days a week. Is that part of the decision now?
Well, every Canadian has experienced the last couple of years differently. For some people, they haven't had the opportunity to work from home or even have a hybrid work model. But for others, including myself, I've enjoyed working from home, and it's the first time I've ever had that opportunity in my career. So when we look at some of these reasons why Canadians are making changes, is they are looking for more flexibility in the type of job they do, the opportunity at the job, the hours they work, even for people who are parents. They've got kids to drop off at school and pick up at the end of the day. All of those have applicability in terms of why people are looking at making a career change, or for some new individuals or younger Canadians when they're entering the workforce.
I was thinking about the fact that the employers, I'm thinking about it from the two perspectives. Like, so for somebody who has not been able to break into their field, have not been able to break into the market and get a job in the field that they've perhaps always dreamt of because of lack of experience, this is an ideal opportunity right now to break in. But then I'm thinking employers are also going to benefit from the fact that they're able to pay people less to do some higher level jobs. Do you know where I'm going with this, Michelle?
Yeah, I think there's opportunities for both job seekers as well as employers. For job seekers, I very much encourage that if you've got a dream job in mind, go ahead and apply for it. Don't worry if you do have a skills gap on your resume, because there's lots of opportunity for you to fill out those soft skills I mentioned earlier in the cover letter and include that in your objections of why you want to have that job on your resume. But for people, employers who are looking at hiring, this is also an opportunity to expand beyond the current network that you have maybe using to fill those job positions, and to think about Canadians maybe living in a different area of the country if you're willing to have remote workers or people working in a hybrid model, and also to consider maybe some older Canadians who may be looking at making that switch to the industry that you've got the job open. And so it gives everybody a ton of opportunity. And quite honestly, the diversity that Canadians offer to employers is truly a tremendous advantage. So diversity of thought, diversity of background, diversity of culture, age, education, all of it together means for a much more inclusive environment at work.
I just want to ask one last thing, and I think we talked about this a while ago with people applying for these jobs now, and you've outlined some of the issues to deal with here and some of the things you want to go for that perhaps you didn't think you might have before. What's a mistake or something you should not do in applying for, say, a new job?
Oh, that's a great question. There's a couple of things that come to mind of what not to do when you're applying for a job. Is, don't sell yourself short. So if you've got experience, maybe it's volunteering at a humane society or an animal shelter. Potentially it's some soft skills that for new graduates they may have learned in clubs at college or university. Make sure you highlight that. So even if you don't have direct job experience, you may have been able to pick up that experience in volunteer work or in some of the clubs and associations you may be part of. So don't feel that doesn't matter on a resume. It sure does. And another thing is that as I said, I hire lots of people, and I definitely look at the cover letter. I look at what people's presence is on some social platforms. Make sure that you don't sell yourself short and really highlight those skills that you do have. And thirdly is apply for the dream job. Take that shot at it and don't limit yourself, because right now there's so much opportunity for people who are looking for a change.
Okay.
So just before we let you go, could you tell us what Indeed is? What does Indeed do?
Yeah, Indeed is Canada's largest job-seeking platform. It's where Canadians can go and find jobs across many, many industries in all regions in Canada. And for employers, it's a great place where they can go and they can list a job. So if you're looking at hiring an individual for your company, whether you're a small business or you're looking even at growing your business from one person to two, Indeed is a great platform to be able to post that job and to be able to find Canadians to fill that position. Indeed operates in many different countries around the world, so we do have a global presence, and we're the largest job-seeking platform in the world.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Michelle, thank you so much. Appreciate the time today.
I really appreciate it. Thanks again.
So Indeed.com, and things are changing. We knew this, right? All the sort of data has been pointing that way, but I think that's encouraging for someone out there who's like, I don't have that much experience, but...
Soft skills.
Yeah, soft skills are important. And, as she said, don't omit stuff. Whatever you have done, everything counts, whether you think it does or not.
Asking questions, looking for answers. Here's more of Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
It's not just you. It seems everyone kind of lacks patience and tolerance these days as we emerge from the isolation of the pandemic. Tensions are running high, even at the office. Why has returning to work created anger? Are we just not listening to each other anymore? We got some great advice on how to ease workplace tensions.
I'm kind of a little torn in terms of presenting this story, only because, you want to try to do some happy news as opposed to doing this. The terrible news that far too often is what we end up talking about, things that are happening either politically or economically. And then what do we do? About a week ago, we were talking, I forgot what the question of the day was, and we had a woman call who worked at a restaurant on the West Island where she'd been for, I think, more than 20 years, she said. I'm trying to remember her name, but I can't remember.
Our question was, has it always been like this, or did the pandemic make us all meaner and angrier and lack patience and tolerance? And she was a waitress saying, holy moly, it has
gotten way worse, right? Mm-hmm. And she talked about people just simply having basically no time and no understanding of anything. Her restaurant was short-staffed, as so many restaurants now are.
No
and
empathy.
People didn't seem to show any empathy. They just, where's my food? Where's my coffee? Why did it take so long to refill my cup? And we both sat and looked at each other and went, that's kind of so sad. Mm-hmm. And you wonder when that's going to change. We heard from a stand-up from Jessica KIRSON earlier in the show. Same thing going to shows for her at the beginning. Now we read a piece that suggests conflicts are on the rise where? Back at work.
Uh-oh.
Perfect. Christine Miles is the author of What Is It Costing You Not to Listen? She's a listening guru and executive coach. And also founder and CEO of Equipt. So I think we've spoken before, Christine, but possibly not about this. So my first question is, should we even be surprised that this is happening at the workplace, given the fact, as we've just described, it seems to be happening everywhere else?
We really shouldn't be surprised, although I hear the word sad, and it is sad, and yet it is also understandable, because we were all, to some degree, we suffered through the lockdown, and, I didn't know how hard house arrest was going to be, right? You think it's going to be easy to make me stay home and be disconnected, but that lack of control and that control being taken away from us and the uncertainty really did create a collective little bit of post-traumatic stress for people. So the fuse is a lot shorter, so it shouldn't be surprising.
You know, I wonder, too, if part of this anger, that fuse being shorter with people going back to work, is because people, at least some of them, really didn't want to go back to work, either now or at least not in a rush. You know, that hybrid model that's been talked about so much was kind of working for people. Do you think some of it owes itself to that?
I do. I think that's very insightful of you to see that. I think the word control there. Now, we had more control in some ways of our own schedule and our own destiny, and we had more freedoms in this area. And so it is a shift to have to go back and reacclimate in that way. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, and I think, we use the word new normal a lot, and I don't think we're there yet. I think, again, emotionally, people are still getting sick, although thankfully not as sick for the most part, but it still wears us out. I was talking to one of my chiropractor who had talked about being sick with COVID. He's a young guy in Thanksgiving time, and it took him 6 weeks to rebound from that. And so we forget that, people are still coming down with this, and they're tired as well, or their family members tired. So there's a lot going on, and I think so much goes on below the surface, and that's the problem. We forget that, and then we just react to what we see on the surface. And that's part of why I'm so passionate about listening, is so that we go deeper to really try to understand, because that's how we'll reconnect and be more caring towards one another.
Well, and I'm curious too, just this idea, we haven't been in person. Like, Erin and I have been to a couple of events recently, and that's new, right? Like, we're out of custom. Yeah. We're a little rusty on that front. And so if you add the pressure of a work environment where perhaps the stakes could be a little bit higher, could it just be that we've lost some of these skills and it might take us a bit of time to get them back?
Again, absolutely. So, I was injured in an auto accident when I was 28, very sadly. And I had 3 years of chronic pain, and then things really let loose and went kind of serious. And there was one point where I had a secondary infection I had a cervical spine injury. So I was locked down in my 30s. I knew the psychological trauma about this, but there was a period where I hadn't gone out of the house for 3 months because of something that was going on medically. And I'm a tall woman. I was an athlete. I'm pretty competent physically. I'm extroverted. And after 3 months of not being in the world, I felt frightened a little bit for a little bit of time. So it took some time to reacclimate. And we do need to get our stamina back, and we need to get our physical and emotional confidence reset in a different way, because the stress was real for all of us.
It's funny as you say that. I think circumstances differ, right? You talk about going through a rather traumatic experience physically, and people going back to work. It's as you said, it's kind of post-traumatic in a sense as well. You've adjusted to a new normal, even though that normal is nothing you ever had to experience before or go through. I thought, Christine, when you talked about, we're not there yet, I was hoping you were going to say we're a long way from there yet. And yes, there are still people getting sick, but clearly things are much better now. As far as COVID goes, than they were even 6 months ago. How long do you think, and I realize it's a tough guess to make, until we get back to what we keep calling the new normal? Is it months? Is it a year? Is it longer than that? Is there any way to figure that out?
I'm sure there's ways to figure it out. That's certainly beyond my scope to be able to predict that. What I do know is that change is happening, but it's slow. So I remember when I was younger, I asked one of my friend's mother, like, did you mind that your husband went bald? I was very young. I thought, well, do you care if he doesn't have hair? She goes, well, it happened gradually, so I didn't even really notice. That's how change happens a lot, that we're making improvements, but we don't see it because it's happening before our eyes, and we're too close to the landscape to really see the whole picture. So I think, this is not it's not a straight line to success. Much like grief, and there's a grieving process here too, because a lot of people lost people or went through things. It doesn't happen overnight. It is a process. So we have 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and I think we have to reconnect with each other, get back into practice, and I think we just have to learn to go deeper. This is one of the things I know about listening and why I do this work, is that somebody will say, how you doing? And they'll say, hey, I'm great. And then you listen to a little closer. great doesn't always mean great. And if we just took a little more time to say, how are you feeling? Not just how are you doing, or tell me more. People are ready to share more. And with that reconnection, that's how we're going to get back to being more empathetic.
I was thinking about how, in being isolated, we became more insulated, right? Like we were caught up in our own reality and our own existence. And when you're back in the work environment, maybe we're just, like you said, we're not kind of listening. We're not taking people in the same way that we used to. Are there any tips? I mean, I like that question. How are you feeling? Are there any other tips that you have for how we can try to connect and actually be present and listen to each other?
Yeah, sure. I think we're all thirsting to be understood and heard, and because we have been isolated, this is also the problem. We expect to be served and taken care of, and we forget we were all in the same boat. I was out at just my local community pool, and somebody asked me a question, and they started talking and made it about themselves for about 15 minutes. I was aware of that. It didn't bother me. I was happy to give that gift of attention and listening and understanding. I think we all have to step back and go, am I just the one talking, or am I also seeking to let others talk as well? So it's that insulation that's led to more of that self-absorption in a way. So I think it's about recognizing if we just give the gift of understanding and give that gift of listening, we're going to do better. And so how does that make you feel, or how are you feeling? And then tell me more. Encourage somebody to talk more. When you give, you get, and that's the reconnection we need. So if you see someone at work, and rather than, trying to just not listen, just say, hey, tell me more. What's happening with you? What's going on? Let's reconnect in that way, and it will all be better off for it.
Great advice. I bet a lot of people listening to this say, yeah, that's me. I'm finding myself in that same situation, but there's a way to do it. Just listen, take it a little farther, and maybe bring it back to where it used to be. Christine, thank you so much for your time. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.
The book, by the way, it's called What Is It Costing You Not to Listen? If you want to check it out, the author is Christine Miles.
The stories in the news that are worth your time. Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
It was the kind of demonstration you don't see every day. And in the end, the idea for organizers was really there not to be a need for another one. The Free the Breast movement was organized by women in Montreal who want the same right as men to go topless. And that all stems from the fact that it's not illegal for women to do that, at least as one Quebec woman discovered.
Alice LACROIX is an organizer of the protest, and she joins us now. Thanks for your time today, Alice.
Hi.
So can you start by telling us about this incident in Quebec City that sparked the protest?
Absolutely. So Eloise was alone, and she was doing crochet in the park. It was a hot day. There was several men around her who were being topless, and she decided to take her shirt off to enjoy the sun. And so somebody called the police to complain. One policeman came to see her, asked her to dress up. She said, no, I know my rights. I don't have to. And they came back with 5 policemen to ask her to get dressed. Thankfully, the event ended nicely. However, it was very stressful for Eloise, and we wanted to organize this protest to remind people that it's perfectly legal for us, and that we have our rights should be respected.
That's the first thing that I think is so important to mention, is that it is not illegal, but clearly it makes some people very uncomfortable to the point of feeling the need to call police. So I saw you on CTV News, and you said something about that this is not just about changing people's minds and changing the way people view women's breasts, but it's about gender equality. Could you tell us a bit more about that, Alice?
Absolutely. The reason why I organized the protest, and the reason why this is a cause that really touched me, is specifically because of that. Because in the end, I'm not the biggest fan of being topless myself. If what came out of this was that everyone has to stay dressed all the time, I would be fine with that as well. What is really problematic to me is this discrimination that only women have to always that everybody is trying to legislate what women can and cannot wear, can and cannot do with their own bodies, and this is really a question of equality as well as bodily autonomy.
So I want to ask the question because, Alice, we got some, as Natasha mentioned off the top, some different reactions from callers, including one and a couple of text messages as well, suggesting, you know what, it's not a fair comparison to say, well, men get to be topless, but and therefore so should women, because their argument is, well, unfortunately in the society we live in, our culture sexualizes breasts. What's the answer to that?
We don't live in a culture or a society that forbids to have anything sexual displayed in the streets. If you think you do, I would encourage you to go out on Crescent Street on a Friday night. You will see legs, butts, thighs, cleavage, skin-tight clothing that leaves nothing to the imagination. So to me, that's not a valid argument at all.
I express my own feeling on it, which is I think it has to be up to the individual, and I have friends who are totally fine with that. And well, personally, like you, I'm not necessarily the one who wants to go topless right away. I will respect someone else's. What I would like to see happen is like a change in behavior, right? And yes, it might make me uncomfortable, and I might not know where to look or how to act at first, but at some point it would be normalized. But how do you think we get to that point? Because that's not where we are right now, Alice.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I have had a lot of discussion with people of different opinions, and I'm really happy to have had the opportunity to discuss with all those people, because only by having communication with people who think differently, we can move forward and we can talk about these things. But you have to look to the past, to the fact that women had to fight for the right to wear pants. They had to fight for the right to wear the miniskirt. And every step of the way, it's always been the same thing. There's always been some people asking, where will it stop? Or why do women always want to get naked? And this and that. So it's just another step. It's the same thing. People are using the exact same argument they were using 70 years ago when the miniskirt was being was appearing. And we look at other countries where, like Europe, everywhere in Europe, where it's totally normal for a woman to be topless on the beach, and completely accepted, completely normal. And there's no more harassment for these women than there is here.
So there is obviously, and I'm sure you've heard this argument as well, there's a cringe factor, right? You have guys showing up, looking, staring, whatever. What about that aspect of it?
I think it's even more important to well, personally, I'm very rude to these people, because they need to understand that, it's an argument that I've heard, that don't go crying, don't go complaining if you're topless and you get harassed. Mm-hmm. You can be sure that I will cry and complain if this happens, because it doesn't work that way. We don't live in a society where we blame the victim in any other crime except this specific one, the crime of exciting a man. Like, this is the only, if I steal a necklace to someone who has like a big gold necklace, nobody's going to say, yeah, that person shouldn't have worn that gold necklace outside. They were teasing you with their money. Nobody's going to say that. Why do we say that about women being sexy or whatever? We're not attracting anything, especially if you look at the pictures from the protest. There were people of all ages, all body types, who were just enjoying the sun, and that's it. And we're not doing it for anyone, for the male gaze or anyone. We just want to be comfortable. We just want to enjoy a society that has equal rights.
So let me ask this question, because Natasha's made the point. It's not against the law to do it. What are you hoping for, or what's the ultimate objective here? Do you want the city to simply say it's okay? Does there have to be a mandate? What has to happen next?
I think it was a lot of people's minds that we needed to change. People need to understand that it's legal. They have a right to be offended, and we have a right to be topless, and we can do it while respecting each other. But, like, for example, when we organized this protest, we reminded all the participants that being topless is not a lewd act. However, when you are topless, you got to be a little bit more careful about your actions. Like, for example, it might not be the right time to start twerking or making out with someone for 10 minutes, because we're not there to upset anyone, and we're not there to be lewd. So it's just a reminder of respecting others as well, while you're expressing your freedoms.
I'm so intrigued by the fact that you're so passionate about this when it isn't necessarily something that you want to be able to do yourself. Well, you want anyone to be able to do it. But the comfort level, again, is something that I keep kind of struggling with. How do we, in Europe, nobody thinks twice about it, right? Like, if you're at a pool or at a beach, or any place that it's deemed appropriate, so to speak, because there's still lots of places that it would not be deemed appropriate, no one bats an eyelash or reacts to it. Do you feel confident that as a society we can actually get there in the not too distant future, Alice?
100%.
You do?
100%. And we just got to keep doing it. And I think that there are so many different areas in which we still struggle as a society to respect other people's freedoms. There are still people being victim of racism in the streets, of people who wear religious signs are being harassed for their, it's just one of those things. Like, we're just going to keep on being louder and keep on being present. Queer people, religious people, whatever you have that makes you different. All we're asking is to be accepted and respected.
I love what you said. You have the right to be bothered, but we have the right to be
exactly
topless.
The top, which is a great sort of description of this whole potential problem here. So going forward, is the idea that as the weather gets nice, women will go out there. You were out there demonstrating, but if women decide to go ahead and do this, police, I guess, need to be told, don't arrest anybody, don't give anyone a ticket because they're not doing anything illegal.
They can't give you a ticket. There's jurisprudence in the 90s. There was a woman who was given a ticket. She contested it. It went to court. And finally, in Supreme Court, they decided that the act of being topless for a woman was not considered indecency.
So will there be more protests then going forward?
Maybe not protests, but just gathering of people who enjoy gender equality.
Well, you're incredibly articulate and clearly very passionate about it.
Oh, thank you very much.
I wonder if the city's going to get the message, or will police simply be told? It doesn't even have to be something mandated. Or if they're, look, don't bother anybody. If someone calls you, just tell them it's not against the law and don't show up, and let people do what people want to do.
And maybe the public will learn, don't call the police over this. It's okay.
They're not going to come.
If it bothers you, look away.
I think that's at the very least what we've accomplished this weekend, which how much this has been discussed. I think at the very least people won't be calling the police yet.
Well, let's hope so. Alice, thank you so much. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. Have
All right.
a good day.
There you go. Again, she's right. It's not a protest. Are they getting together just to let people know, you know what, this is, as far as we're concerned, perfectly normal. You don't like it? Sorry, but this is what we get to do.
I mean, there's lots of things that people do and say and how they behave in society that lots of people don't like, right? You don't call the police over it. You try to tolerate it, or like we said, you look away or you go elsewhere.
Isn't it funny, though, when you think about it? If you saw this in a park, would your first inclination be to call police?
Good God, no.
That just strikes me as so bizarre in a way. What would you do?
If I'm not bothered by it, I carry on.
Do nothing, right.
If I'm bothered by it, then I would remove myself from the situation. It's not up to me to dictate to them how to behave, right?
Just some guy just now, as I said that, thinking to himself, what I would do, I'd call a friend and say, hey, there's some women sitting at the park with they're topless. Come on over. That's what some people will do, but she's right. At the beginning, that's going to be the reaction from some men.
And then it'll calm down.
Exactly. And if you let them know that you're, as she said, she lets know in no uncertain terms.
I love that she said that.
That's not cool. Then it'll stop.
Yeah, cut it out.
That wraps up this edition of The Week That Was here on the iHeartRadio Network. I'm Aaron Rand along with Natasha Hall, and we will see you next week.
Have a great week.
This has been the Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. Listen live on your radio weekday afternoons from 2 to 6 on CJAD 800 or through the iHeartRadio app.